Welcome to part 2 of using the wizards. So now you can see I have a section up here for create editing orders, my original section down here on movies. I'm logged in as a developer. I have these links on the bottom of the screen. Maybe I want to move movies on top and orders on the bottom. How do I do that? I go back to the edit page. I look at the different regions. I have the movie region here. I have the order region here. Let me grab movies, drag it above orders. I run the page again. Movies is above orders. This is not a production quality form, but you can see how quickly you can go in there and generate these different types of components incredibly quickly. Using the wizards is an incredibly powerful way to get things out there really quickly. And then you can go back and tweak and say, you know what? I want this to line up with this. I don't want to have this over here. I want to change the color of this. It makes it real easy to get all of the plumbing that goes on underneath the scenes to work properly and work quickly. I'm going to edit the page again. When we added that last region, we added a pretty simple wizard to add that form. Let's go through and add another region to this page and run one of the more complex forms. So again, I'm going to right click on body. I'm going to say create. It's going to take me to the page that says, okay, you want to create a new region. What do you want the region to look like? So I'm going to select chart here. It gives me different types of options. For a long time, Oracle Application Express only supported flash charts, but because that's a proprietary technology, Oracle is starting to get away from it a little bit, and they're starting to include more and more HTML5 charts. So you can see I have these different types of charts. The subtype is column, and here's my subtype. I even have more. Let's create a simple old 2D column. This is going to be one of the more complex wizards that are out there, and I wanted to show this to you just to give you an indication that some of them are very simple, some of them are a little more complex. I'm going to create a simple chart called movie ratings. Does it have a parent region? Nope. I'm going to use the region template as a chart region. Again, I can go in there and change that if I want to, but for now, I'm just going to keep it as a chart region. What is the chart title going to be? I'm going to call it movie ratings. I can define background color, gradient angle, x-axis title, y-axis title, solid color gradient, all those different types of things. Along the x-axis, I'm going to call that rating. Along the y-axis, total number of movies. I can show the grid, show the legend, hints, labels, values, all of these different things, color schemes. And I can go back and change this at any time if I don't like what the chart looks like. So then I click on next. Here's where things get really kind of interesting. I have to write a SQL query that's going to populate this particular chart. I have to write the SQL query in a very specific way in order for Apex to understand what I'm trying to chart as part of this page. It gives you this chart query for a 2D column. What Oracle is basically saying to you here is you have to have 3 values that are going to drive this chart, and they all have to be aliased with certain values. You have to alias the first column of your select statement with something called a link. You have to alias the second column of your select statement with something called label, and you have to alias the third column of what you want to chart with value. It has to be that way. This will always be these 3. Link, label, value. Link, label, value. Link, label, and in this example, we don't have value because it's pulling 2 different pieces of information for a 2D chart. We're hard coding the different values here because it's pulling more than one value at the same time. But this is what the basic select statement has to look like. So I'm going to be pulling information from my movies table. So I'm going to just select these and I'm going to put it inside my SQL query. I know it's coming from movies. I'm going to change that right off the bat. Now I can try to make sure that the SQL statement is done correctly, but I can also use this build query link to help me out a little bit. So I'm going to use that build query link, and this is going to take me to yet another wizard that's going to construct the SQL statement for me. I know I want to go off movies, and I want to go off the movie table. Select the label, and I want it to be rating. What do I want to group these by? Well, I want to do a count. I want to break these down by account. I can also have a secondary value and an aggregate function, which I don't need. I can set some different things on what I want to see inside the pagination and the target type. Again, we're going to go through all of these different pieces when we look at charts in detail in an upcoming lesson. But for now, just understand that this wizard requires a lot more information and a lot more sophisticated stuff than some of the other wizards do. I click on next, I say, okay, everything looks okay. It populates the SQL query for me here automatically. This should be value. So there's our three pieces right there: link, label, value. It has all of the information for me automatically. It looks pretty good. Now I can create the region. And when I look at the regions on this particular page, I have the form on a movie. I have the form on the create edit order. And now I have the movie ratings region here at the bottom of the page. So now I can run. I can scroll down. And as you can see inside of my database, I have 322 entries that have a movie rating of 9. And I have one entry that has a rating of 6. Obviously, I just populated that particular table with a whole bunch of bogus data just so I can do this example for you. But that's a real simple way of seeing how the different wizards that are built into Oracle Application Express really require you to have different types of knowledge depending on what you're trying to do there. Some of them are incredibly simple. Some of them are much more complex and require you to do a lot more as part of your understanding of how you want your final component to actually work inside of your Oracle Application Express page. If a lot of the other pieces seemed overwhelming, don't sweat it too much now. We are going to go into detail about how to create really complex charts and graphs and forms and reports and calendars in the upcoming lesson.